Video on solving by isolation. Our first example is x squared equals 4. Start by taking the square root of both sides, so you get x equals plus or minus the square root of 4. When solving for x and taking the square root, there must be a positive and negative root. So you get x equals plus or minus 2. Both 2 and negative 2 are solutions. You can check this by plugging it back in. 2 squared equals 4, and negative 2 squared equals 4. Number 2, x squared minus 1 equals 15. For this one, we're going to isolate the x squared first by adding 1 to the other side. So we have x squared equals 16. Then we can take the square root of both sides, which gives you x equals plus or minus 4. For our third example, 3x squared plus 4 equals 19. First, we'll subtract 4 from both sides. Then divide by 3 on both sides, so that x squared equals 5. When you take the square root of both sides, x equals plus or minus the square root of 5. And that's your answer. Now let's do something a little trickier. We'll have x minus 2 squared in parentheses plus 1 equals 50. First, we'll isolate the x minus 2 squared by subtracting 1 from both sides. So we have x minus 2 squared equals 49. Again, we can square root both sides to give us x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 49. The square root of 49 is 7, so here we have plus or minus 7, and when we add 2 to both sides, we get x equals 2 plus or minus 7. Then we find both answers for x. So x equals 2 plus 7, which is 9, or 2 minus 7, which is negative 5. So those are your answers. Number 5, 2x squared equals 48. First, we'll divide by 2 on both sides to isolate the x squared, so that x squared equals 24. Then, we'll square root both sides so that x equals plus or minus the square root of 24. To simplify the square root of 24, we must factor it until we have perfect squares. 24 can be factored down into 6 times 4. 6 can be factored into 3 times 2, and 4 can be factored into 2 times 2. So, to leave the party, each number must have a buddy. So 2 and 2 have a buddy, so they can come outside of the square root sign. So we're left with 2 times 3 times 2, which is root 6. So your final answer is x equals plus or minus 2 root 6. Number 6, parentheses x plus 1 squared equals 25. First, we'll take the square root of both sides so that x plus 1 equals square root of 25, plus or minus. The square root of 25 is 5, so we can do x plus 1 equals plus or minus 5. Then we can do x equals positive 5 minus 1, and x equals negative 5 minus 1. so that our answers are x equals 4 and x equals negative 6. Number 7. X squared minus 2 equals 10. First, we'll add 2 to both sides, so that we get x squared equals 12. When we square root both sides, we get x equals plus or minus the square root of 12. 12 is also a radical that can be simplified. Square root of 12 goes into 6 and 2, and then 6 goes into 3 and 2. So since 2 and 2 are together, they can leave the party, so that you get 2 square root of 3. So your answer is x equals plus or minus 2 square root of 3. Number 8. X minus 1 in parentheses plus 2 equals 38. First, we'll subtract 2 from both sides, so that we have x minus 1 squared equals 36. When we square root both sides, we get x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 36. X then equals, since the square root of 36 is 6, 6 plus 1, or x equals negative 6 plus 1. So our answers are x equals 7 and x equals negative 5.